bookings research, understanding traveler behavior for smarter hotel marketing. This is being presented to you by Trust.to, Travel Tripper, and Fuel Travel, and we will be discussing the 3 distinct travel research studies our teams conducted earlier this year. So to begin, let's just quickly review the takeaways we hope to provide to you during the webinar today. First, Trust.to will be taking you through the importance of Google and how to influence your hotel's ranking, and also the impact of hotel ratings on your bookings. Then Travel Tripper will show you how to use search marketing to your hotels and how both are instrumental to your hotel's marketing strategy. To wrap things up, Fuel Travel will address optimizing your hotel's website to travelers' desires, and also how to beat direct competitors and OTAs. So let me introduce you to today's speakers, which include myself. My name is Valerie Castillo, and I am the Senior Director of Marketing and current marketing lead at Trust.to, the world's largest guest feedback platform. I have 7 years of marketing experience in the hospitality software industry and seek to help educate hotels on the importance of their online reputation in order to increase revenues and improve their hotel product. From Travel Tripper, we have Director of Digital Marketing, Tristan Hayward. Tris comes to Travel Tripper with more than 10 years of experience in digital marketing and e-commerce, particularly in search network advertising, ad retargeting, SEO, and PPC management. At Travel Tripper, Tris has helped hotels to earn millions in direct bookings revenue through strategic digital marketing management. Hello to you, Tris.
Hello, and thanks for having us.
Thank you. And then finally, from Fuel Travel, we have COO Stuart Butler. Stuart oversees the direct booking strategies for hundreds of hotels worldwide. And with a degree in physics with space science and systems and a background as a cold fusion programmer and a project manager, Stuart takes a solutions-minded and innovative approach to everyday marketing challenges. He's also the host of the industry's #1 weekly marketing podcast, and perhaps the reason that some of you found this webinar today, the Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast. Hello to you, Stuart.
Hey there, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So to address our audience just for a moment, if you do have questions, please feel free to provide those questions to us in the questions panel. You can also use the chat functionality if for whatever reason you can't see anything on the screen today or you're unable to hear us. Definitely communicate and feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, but we will be waiting until the last few minutes of today's presentation. Hopefully we'll leave about 10 minutes to answer those questions that are coming in. So to jump right into it, we're going to start with the details of the Trust.to study, which we titled Travelers' Online Search and Booking Behaviors. So we received responses from over 900 travelers in the United States who had traveled in the past year and made a booking decision online within the previous year. So starting from left to right is just a brief breakdown of these respondents. So from an age generation standpoint, most of our respondents were within the Gen X category, aged between 35 to 54. Age-wise and gender-wise, we have seen a pretty similar distribution to our previous research involving travelers in the US. But interestingly enough, we actually saw a 10% higher reported average household income as compared to previous research we've conducted. And we believe this is potentially due to the added question requiring that respondents had booked accommodations online within the previous year. So moving very quickly to what some of these travelers reported as kind of their regular travel activity. All travelers had reported traveling at least once for leisure within the previous year, and 51% of the travelers had traveled for business. So we were able to draw the conclusion that all business travelers are also traveling for leisure, and potentially there's a combination of the two related to the leisure trend that we're hearing a lot about in the news. So despite increasingly available alternative sources for accommodation that I know many of you hotels are hearing about these days, most commonly, of course, mentioned is Airbnb, respondents frequently report booking conventional types of accommodations. So actually with the majority, 86% here reporting that they're still booking hotels for their stays. So hotels remain the most popular accommodation type booked online, while actually home sharing sites were actually reported as less than 10% of the accommodation types that were regularly booked online. So taking a quick step back and just looking at our research a little bit more holistically, we were able to conclude that the guest journey is not linear. Instead, it is a part of a cycle that is continuous and influences future traveler decisions and experiences. The guest journey starts actually before they even walk into your hotel, according to our research. The starting point for each guest really occurs in what we call this search and booking phase, when travelers are deciding on where they want to make a booking and where they want to stay. Then they'll arrive at the hotel, beginning the next phase of the journey, the on-site experience. And then lastly, after their stay is over, the guests share their feedback. So whether on social media, with a completed guest survey, or posted online review, these reviews not only impact the hotel itself, but also influence future guests searching for similar experiences, beginning the cycle all over again. So to break it down even further, we actually divided up the search and booking step of the process into phases. We have the phase where the traveler begins the initial search, where they're researching hotels online, which leads then to the traveler's choice evaluation step, where travelers compare multiple properties by aligning their needs with the offers from the accommodation providers. And then eventually features are outweighed against each other, which leads them to the final booking decision. So we'll break up the next few slides into these three phases and the research that we found within each of them. So starting with the initial search, it should come as no surprise, really, that Google was the top source of travel inspiration, with an astounding 48% reporting that they start with Google search, followed closely by other booking engines, and then also Facebook. So as you can see, the travelers in many instances of our study were actually asked to pick more than one option, and so about half of our respondents noted one of these within their pick list. So we know Google is very important to hotels, but exactly how important? Well, there were 91% of the travelers who use search engines when booking accommodations. 81% prefer to use Google. So that's an extremely significant majority. We also asked these travelers to enter in the keywords that they were likely to have used the last time that they searched for accommodations. So I know that's very interesting for all of you that are implementing an SEO or PPC strategy. The word cloud that we created from this displays the actual search terms that they used, and through careful analytics, we were able to determine that 57% of travelers searched for a hotel, 49% of a specific for a specific location, so for instance San Diego, and 31% searched using a combination of the two, so particular hotel name or a hotel plus San Diego. So moving into our choice evaluation slide, when these terms are searched for, Google's algorithm picks up on the topic and automatically generates a summarized hotel listing search with its map. We showed this result to travelers and asked who had previously seen these results, and the majority, 61% of them, reported that they have seen these results and actively use them in their search process. So the Google Hotel Search and Maps functionality is gaining popularity with travelers searching online and is a recognizable interface for a majority of them. Furthermore, we asked these travelers to interact with a sample listing of hotels to see where their click paths would go. 32% of the travelers clicked on the map, while the majority clicked on one of the hotel listings to gain further information, probably trying to decide on some of those key attributes that they want to use in order to make their final choice. And it's actually great because Tristan from Travel Tripper in just a few minutes will explore this topic even more in depth with you with his portion of today's presentation. So furthermore, within the choice evaluation step, across the industry, there are similar hotel profile attributes that you all hear about. When booking a hotel through an online aggregator, really the most frequent attributes that a traveler is looking at is the hotel's nightly room rate, their review score, the hotel's industry rating, an image of the hotel, and then the hotel name or brand. So to find out which variable really had the most weight in the decision process, we asked travelers to rank the order of importance to their final booking decision. We discovered that the top two have a very correlated relationship. And this also holds true in our previous research that we've released on the subject, proving that travelers really are willing to spend more or pay a higher nightly rate for a hotel with a higher review score. Of this sample, 33% would choose to see hotels with excellent review scores, 88% would choose to see hotels with very good review scores, and 96% would sort for hotels with good review scores. Therefore, a higher review score will ensure that your hotel is not filtered out of these results and instead seen by the most amount of potential guests. And then finally, taking us through the final path to decision, we wanted to discover where travelers are actually performing their bookings. According to travelers' previous bookings, they have most often used these sources to actually book their accommodation. So here you'll actually see that Google falls to number 5, proving itself to be definitely a great research tool, more so than a booking tool in most cases. But we do expect that to shift with the gaining popularity, but we are seeing that sites like Expedia and Hotels.com are getting more actual bookings calculated than Google. And then finally, to help us discover even more about the booking decision process, we found that an astounding 66% of travelers were still using a desktop to make their decisions. So while they might do research on apps or on their mobile phone, they're actually making a booking, a final booking on their desktop. So this might relate back to the age bracket that generated the most respondents, which as you recall was between 35 to 54. So therefore these numbers might be different if a greater majority, let's say, was from the millennial age bracket. However, it's hard to argue with such large percentages. It looks like desktop will definitely still remain a favorite channel for making a final booking. So a hotel's presence on that channel is going to be very important from a booking standpoint. And to wrap things up from our side and from our research, we wanted to be able to create, some key takeaways for you hotels to educate your marketing decisions. In the initial search phase, definitely be present on Google. Super, super important. The travelers are beginning here and you'll want your hotel to be front and center. Second, make sure that you monitor your review score. This not only can help you gain more visibility on Google with higher page rankings, so relating to the first key takeaway, but a higher score also ensures that no traveler is sorting you out of their hotel choices, which is the most important thing. Lastly, get to know your guest, find out how they found you, what channels they are booking on, and what experiences they enjoyed through post-stay feedback surveys. This information can not only inform your hotel, but it can also help increase your review score, as the majority of reviews that hotels collect themselves are very positive. So now I am very happy to pass the presentation along to Tristan Hayward with Travel Tripper as he gives us even more insight into the travelers' preferences on search engines. Tris?
Valerie, thank you very much. That was very insightful. I really enjoyed that. Okay, so I thought I'd start here to try and link in with some of the great information that Valerie has just provided, but also to highlight just how much competition is going on a search results page. So as you can see there, the image on the right hand side, that's just a generic search for a particular property that that could come up anytime, anywhere in the world. But even from this, you can see that Google is competing for your attention in multiple ways. And given that the average person only spends a few seconds looking at a results page, you really must have your digital strategy in order and firing on all channels. Now, I'll go into some aspects of this in a little bit more detail, but one sort of very key point here is the further down the page you go, the less attention you receive. And this is why paid ads are vitally important for your hotel, but it's also a channel that is regularly missed. So if you're not bidding on your brand terms, you can pretty much guarantee that an OTA will be, and they'll be stealing direct traffic from you. Hence the reason why OTAs feature in the top 5 sites on which travellers book accommodations, as Valerie mentioned earlier on in some of her slides. But the same goes for your organic listings. You need to have a strong SEO policy that proves to Google that you should rank #1 in the organic listings for your brand terms and any other keyword terms that you identify in your digital marketing strategy. However, one big area I see often neglected is the box, or both boxes on the right hand side, the blue and the green boxes there. Now these are split into 2 sections, the Google business listings, or Google My Business as it's called, and the meta search section, which is the paid aspect to it. Now most of you will be familiar with both of them, but not every property invests in these areas, and most don't invest enough time. Now the Google business listing is something everybody should be managing. It's simple, it's not particularly labor intensive, and most importantly, it's free. And let's be honest, we all like free. Meta search, however, that isn't free, but I've seen a majority approach in this area from a budgetary point of view. So most hotels decide it's a luxury they can afford to be without, but the simple truth is, if you don't bid on it, the OTAs will, and people are still booking from this channel, regardless of whether you are there or not. And let's be honest, the OTAs wouldn't use it if it didn't work. So as long as you're getting a return better than you are paying in commission to the OTAs, then it's money that's well spent, and definitely not a luxury in my opinion. In fact, it could in many cases be a cost saving to your organisation. Now these last 2 channels that I've just mentioned there are quite important, and probably more so than people realise. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more, because recently we commissioned an eye tracking survey to be conducted on a group of people who were shown 3 Google search results pages specific to the hotel industry. So we were intrigued to know, Travel Tripper here, if the changes to the search results pages that Google brought in last year had affected how people actually use Google in the hotel vertical. The results in some cases were quite surprising, but also confirmed some previously held beliefs that we had at Travel Tripper. So Valerie, if you could just go to the next slide, please. So we conducted some brief research and found that whilst there are many eye testing surveys out there conducted over the years, none of these surveys had specifically targeted the hotel industry. Now, more importantly, there was little in the way of testing how the changes that had been introduced by Google back in 2016 had affected user behavior, as I just mentioned. So the changes that we're talking about, the changes saw Google drop the search ads from the right hand side, and they actually increased the number of search results, paid results that came up on the left hand side from a maximum of 3 to 4. The right hand side was actually replaced with the Google business listings that I mentioned earlier. So given these changes, we wanted to see if the old rules would actually apply or not. And from the slide here, there's a bit of a giveaway. You can see that them rules have changed. So we'll jump into them rules. If you could just move to the next slide, please. So, so before we actually jump into what we found, I wanted to show what the old results found. And so there were 2 main survey results that were conducted, and the first one, conducted in 2005, established what was known as the Golden Triangle, and you can see that from the left-hand image there. And the later survey led to a little bit more of a varied result that included an E or F shape pattern, depending on whether you look at paid on its own or paid and organic. So you can see on the right-hand image there, the sections with the 2 red dots in it shapes more into an F when just looking at paid, but if you look at organic as well, it gives an elongated E shape. where people are specifically looking. So these are the two principles that have been around for quite some time, especially the golden triangle. Obviously, as you can see there, the red, orange and yellow forming that triangle up in the top left-hand corner. And these were basically given facts that everybody within the industry worked with. So if we just move to the next slide. So these are the results that we actually found on our search. So this is a heat map of the eye test that we conducted over one of 3 results pages that we used in the test. Now all 3 results were virtually identical, but I've just shown one here so you can see it more clearly on the slide. The red section shows the heaviest and most focused attention. Yellow a little less so, green even less, and the white and blue are the least looked at areas. And if there's no colour of the image, then nobody looked there at all. So very interestingly, you can see the concentration of eye attention focuses on 2 main areas: the paid ads, specifically position 1, the top ad in the top left hand corner, and now the Google business listing on the right hand side. Paid search is still the most dominant and received the very first eye contact and held the attention for the longest of any of the sections by comparison, which has really not changed from the old surveys, especially if you recall the golden triangle that I just mentioned. However, the right hand section came in a very close second in terms of being noticed and held significant attention of the users on our test. Now the hotel image, the picture in the Google My Business listing, received a significant amount of attention across all of the tests, and you can see that in the red areas highlighting this. But our test also showed that the star ratings and check availability section just underneath it were also very popular visually. Now in fact the star ratings, something I want to just bring up, that they proved very popular, but they also proved popular in the ads on the left hand side, but I'll discuss that a little bit later. So across all 3 tests, we found that close to 100% of people saw the Google search ads in the top left hand corner. Approximately 92% of people saw Google business listing on the right. That dropped down to 86% of people saw the meta search ads just below it, and 82% then went on to look at organic listings in any kind of kind of honesty, which is quite interesting, as this completely changes the way that the other surveys have shown how people use Google. In the past, the right hand section has virtually been ignored. It was considered dead space in many cases. Now it's of huge significance to your business, and having the correct information here in your Google business listing is actually vital. So gone is the triangle, gone is the E or the F shaped type section that they've been talking about. So our understanding of how people use Google search and how they use the results has to change. So if you can just click to the next slide, please. So as you can see here, I've overlaid this with some bullet points, sorry, with some numbers. The heat maps don't actually resemble an interesting shape like a triangle or a letter, which is slightly disappointing. But when we actually add the eye attention flow and look at the order in which people viewed each section, we can see that there is actually quite a clear inverse C or a backward C. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, basically the letter C in a backward shape. And it starts with paid search, moving through to the business listings, down to meta, and finishing with the organic listings that you can see in the image that I've got there on the right hand side of the slide. So when we look at the user attention flow in more detail, we see that paid gets the most attention in terms of being seen first and has the longest individual eye attention. But when we add the business listings together with the meta search, that section on the right hand side, this actually had the longest eye attention of anything on the search page. And if we look at organic, we can see a byproduct of these changes to the search results page is that this section, the organic section, actually suffers the most. Not only is it the last seen section, it's also receiving less attention than paid, which is directly above it. So some may actually question if this is a deliberate policy of Google's, and I can't comment on their official stance, but all of the evidence is suggesting that they're forcing organic listings further and further down the search results pages. And rather cynically, I can understand why. But basically, it doesn't make them any money, whereas paid and the meta search sections do. However, I do have to mention that the paid received the most individual attention, and there are also some interesting conclusions that we can draw from the attention that this section receives. And that is, not all paid search is equal. The concentration of attention is quite clearly in the top left hand of the page, which is ad position number 1. Now, this is hardly surprising because in the Western world, we read from left to right, we start at the top of the page, but it does provide yet more evidence that ad position is of vital importance, and ad position number one is obviously where you need to be to have a more successful paid search campaign looking at certainly attention. And this kind of backs up some of the results that we've been seeing in our AdWords accounts that we have for some of our clients. If you just flick to the next slide, please. Now, I particularly like this image as it shows the same searches from the previous page plus another one with a different hotel on there, but it emphasizes just how much of the page people are not looking at. So if you have no paid ads or poor organic listings, you may as well get your checkbook out and give you 20% or how much it's going to be to the OTA straight away. As you can see from the black zones that are represented in this areas that are just not looked at, on the slightly grayer areas in the whiter section that are receiving less attention. And that's evident even in the paid section, as you need to be in the top position to get the most attention, as I've just mentioned. But I also mentioned about the star review or the seller review sections. In the left-hand image, you can just about see there's in the second ad there you can see the 4.5/5 orange stars. Now, we purposefully selected an ad in that position too that had the review star ratings, and this is a Booking.com ad. And when we compared ad position 2 between all three of the search results pages that we had, the one that had it against the other two that didn't, we found that Booking.com ad received significantly more eye attention being in position 2 than the others. But it was almost exclusively centered around the review rating stars. So again, it's this type of social proof that is vital even at an early stage, even before you get onto your website, even before you get into any kind of booking engine. Having it on the search results page is of particular note. Now, the survey covered eye attention, and there were lots of interesting things that cropped up. Too many to actually go into detail today, but we felt it important that we needed to back up this survey with information based on the actions a user would take after seeing the results page. So we asked the same test users what they would have clicked on. And as you can see here, throughout all of the eye testing surveys conducted, we timed how long each participant spent looking at each marketing section. As mentioned earlier, paid was seen first and had held the eye attention, and this was the longest period at 3.3 seconds. This then passes to the right on the search results, and that's to the business listing, received 2 seconds on average, down into Meta, which received 1.9, and then into organic, receiving 2.8. Now, what is interesting here is that whilst organic did not receive focused eye attention in one particular area, and was the last section to be looked at, it did get a good amount of time spent looking in the section, 2.8. So it's not a million miles behind paid, but obviously when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, you know, we've obviously been through 7 seconds worth of other views before we've got to organic. However, I think the big telling factor here is the total amount of time spent on the search results page in general, which averaged just 10 seconds. Now, you know, we've put people in a test situation, so I think them 10 seconds are probably slightly elongated as well, or probably a little bit longer. So I think in reality, for any of our searches, you've probably got a little bit less than that. But for me, this highlights several things. It highlights the impatient nature of people in general when using the internet, and it means that most people are not going to read everything you produce in any placement on the search results pages. So the key messages you present have to be strong, visually bold, and have to be very meaningful if you want to attract a click. So having a boring ad or, you know, poor organic titles will not help your position or attract any kind of meaningful click percentages. However, it also indicates to me that people are looking to find their desired results quickly, and only having half a presence on the search results page means potentially lost visitors to your website and in turn lost revenue. The next couple of slides will help to emphasize these points a little more as well as we go into it. So throughout the survey, we asked various questions, and one of the questions we asked was around knowledge of paid ads. And despite paid ads actually having the ad symbol next to them and indicating they are indeed an ad, 28% of the people surveyed did not realize they were in fact paid for. So given how long Google has been around and how long the AdWords platform has been in existence, this is still quite a significantly high number and something that needs to be factored in any digital marketing strategy, especially considering the validity of paid search versus organic or meta or whatever. So just short of a third of your potential bookers or visitors might be clicking through to an OTA first if you've got no paid presence at all. Less surprisingly is the image on the right-hand side there, the graph on the right side, that 43% of people surveyed did not realize that the meta search was also a paid channel. Again, the ad symbol is displayed, but it's less obvious compared to search ads. But given that this is typically the only ad that has a price displayed, it's quite telling about the confusion that users can have when they're confronted with so much on a search engine results page. So we then moved on to some other questions. So you can just click on the next slide. And we took that last question one step further and tried to understand any preconceptions around paid ads. And the results were quite different from what the eye tracking heat map suggested when looked at in isolation. It's clear that there's still a deep mistrust of paid ads with some sections of the internet populations, with 44% of people stating they would be less inclined to click on an ad if they knew it was paid. However, the fact that 24% stated they would be more inclined indicates that there's been some improvement in trust over the years, as I can recall the issues with the likes of AdWords when they first hit the market, all them years ago. And whilst there's still a long way to go, all of the evidence so far has indicated that having a strong paid ads marketing strategy is important, but this also confirms that organic presence is just as important and should not be neglected, as people will go out of the way not to click on the paid ads and just click exclusively on the organic. In fact, when it comes to building your digital marketing strategy, you should look to be covering as many channels as you possibly can. Test them for returns and evaluate them once you have the data, and not just take a budget-only approach to digital marketing. Also on the right-hand side here, we double-checked that what web browser people were using, and unsurprisingly, Google Chrome came back as the clear winner. And this was more of a spot check to ensure the cross-section of people involved in the survey were as close to a true representation of the wider internet community as possible. So we were quite happy that that was the case. So if you can click on the next slide, please. Now this is where the results became a little bit contradictory and reference the confusion people had over what is a paid ad and what is not. And whilst we saw that people had a distrust of paid ads and felt that they would be less likely to click on them if they knew it was a paid ad, as you can see from the graph, when we asked them same users which link they would physically click on after seeing the search results page that we gave them, 55% chose to actually click on a paid ad, with organic dropping down to 28%. And what is even more telling, that despite getting all of that eye attention, as mentioned earlier about the right-hand section, only 10% would actually click on the meta search section. So again, what's this telling us? To me, it just emphasizes what I previously mentioned, and that is you need a diverse digital marketing strategy. Can you afford to alienate even 10% of your potential bookers by not using meta search? And allowing the OTAs to bid on this unopposed could be potentially revenue lost. The answer to the question I just posed there is going to vary by property as well. So, but what our survey cannot account for is the volume of revenue that is booked by each channel. For example, organic may only get 28% of the clicks, but what organic ADR, what ADR is organic providing? What's the total revenue it's providing compared to paid or meta search? Is it more? Is it less? These are questions that you really need to test. And really get into these channels to figure out exactly where you're going to put your marketing dollars. If you can just click on the next slide, please. So our final question, we tried to drill down even further, identify any positive factors that would influence a person and their decision to click and where they would click. Unsurprisingly, seeing the name of the property you were looking for topped the charts, bit of a no-brainer, but we had to check. But we did see some interesting results that backed up some of the eye attention we saw in the heat maps earlier. So for example, the star rating came out at 31% of people being influenced by this, and again a similar number, 34%, preferred to see a price in the ad even at this early stage of the booking process. Again, a discount was important at 31%, and seeing the words review or some type of review at 29%. Now at Travel Tripper we found all of the information collected quite useful for either confirming thoughts that we already had or for giving evidence to back up ideas that we've been suggesting to our clients. But this last graph really helped. Our ads have since been amended based on the data collected in this, and we've actually tested to show significant improvements once the areas that have been identified in this particular graph are actually combined together. It's also helped us and led to the development and testing of some new search products that we're about to bring out to the market that are not available to the hotel market at this stage and have not been used before. And in the testing that we've put in place over the last couple of months, we've seen a 50% increase in conversion rates, but obviously that's a discussion for a different time. But we're finding that projects like this eye testing survey, whilst fascinating with the results that they provide, they're also vital in shaping not only how a hotel should develop their digital marketing strategy, but also influencing how a hotel partner, such as ourselves, should design and execute that strategy moving forward. So, looking at key takeaways that you can take from what I've just mentioned here, that number one, quite simply, paid search is core to any digital marketing strategy, both in terms of the amount of eye attention that it gets, the amount of time that people are spending on it, and coupled with the likelihood of people clicking on this ahead of any other channel. For me, it's a no-brainer. Again, the second section is to keep your Google business listing updated on the bit on the right hand side. Whilst it doesn't lead to any direct click through, I think the influence this has on the visual impact and the amount of eye attention it gets makes it an essential component of any digital marketing campaign. And again, as I mentioned, it's completely free. And finally, don't discount SEO as part of your strategy. Whilst the evidence here, it seems like I've been almost SEO bashing. For me, it's quite the reverse. I think there are still a section of people who use the internet who have a deep distrust of paid ads and will click on organic results first, irrespective of what they're kind of looking for. So for me, it's having that complete digital marketing strategy that includes paid search and SEO, and if the budget goes to it, most definitely Meta as well. So that's pretty much it for me. That's the takeaway there, and I think I'll probably pass you over to Valerie now.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Tris. That was very informative. I hope all of you got a lot out of that. I think it's great that we're seeing some of that kind of old school research that we saw in the past about Google search be reinvigorated. So we're very happy that you all did that study. So I am now going to pass the presentation over to Stuart from Fuel Travel. So definitely stay tuned for this last part of the presentation as it has to do with your own hotel website. So take it away, Stuart.
Thanks, Valerie. Appreciate it. And great job, Valerie and Tristan. Very informative. I learned a lot. And just FYI, Tristan, I think you can name that heat map the dog. It looks like a dog with a red part being a nose and a big ear. So I would definitely call it a dog moving forward.
Well, we've got a new name.
Yeah, there you go. There's even a little white gap for where the eye would be. So it's a dog looking to the left. But we're going to talk about the website travel study that Fuel did, and we put this out. This was a self-reported study to 2,300 leisure travelers in North America. And we qualified them by asking a question before anything else, that was, have you taken at least one 5-day vacation in the past 12 months? And if you want to download this, there's a lot of cool data. You can go to fueltravel.com/website study and read it at your convenience. But let's jump into the results. So just giving you a breakdown of the participants, you know, it's similar to the Trust.to breakdown. We slanted a little more towards the Gen X, a little less millennials. I think it was just the geography of where we were asking people from. But we see that majority were Gen Xers and Boomers, and heavily slanted towards females. As we all know, the ladies in the house tend to not only wear the pants but also make the decisions when it comes to travel as well. So that just sets it up for what we found. So this next slide is going to probably change some people's perceptions. There's a conventional wisdom in the industry that people are looking at 30+ websites when they're making their leisure travel booking decisions. We've done this study 2 years in a row now, and we find that that number is not only a lot less, but it's going down. So in 2016, when we asked the question, how many different hotel websites do you look at during your research, the mean average was 4.6. And in 2017, we've seen that that's gone down even more to 4.4. So obviously this is a lot lower than conventional wisdom dictates. In addition, we found that more than 86% of people were visiting 9 websites or fewer. So what this really means is they're not shopping around as much as we think. The consumer's becoming a lot more discerning, and they also, looking at what Tristan and Valerie have already showed us, they're doing their research on meta sites, they're doing their research on search engines, so they're coming a lot more equipped and a lot more knowledgeable and ready to make a booking a lot more of the time than they ever were before once they get to your website. Next slide, please. And when they do get to your website, they're perhaps, even though they're looking at fewer websites, they're perhaps spending more time than one would think once they get there. Again, they're becoming more discerning and they know what they want and they're going to try to find it. So we asked the question, how long does it take you to form an opinion, an initial opinion of the property? And again, conventional wisdom tends to tell us that you're going to lose people within 5 or 6 seconds. What the mean average number of seconds we found by asking these 2,300 leisure travelers was 15.9. It's a lot longer than most people would assume. And they're visiting the site multiple times. They're coming back on average 3.4 times to your site during the planning process before booking. And they're spending about 29.8 minutes. So almost 30 minutes of time really doing their homework and comparing your property perhaps against your competition. And importantly, this research is taking place over about a 26-day period. So we know that it's not just they're going to come to the site, check off some boxes, and make a booking decision. They're going to have conversations with their family. They're going to look at their budget. There's a lot of life situations going on in between them visiting your site each time. So you got to make sure, make sure that each time that they come to your site that you're providing relevant and personalized information to them. So what are they really looking for? What content matters to them? We found that 95% of people said that they really want property and room information. That's the core why they're coming to your website. And a lot of hotels try to also be, do the CVB or the local chamber's job and try to give a lot of area information. And while that should certainly not be the primary content on your website, it is still important. More than 70% of people said that they do like to see that content on a website. Now, this is something that I think should be one of the big takeaways from this webinar. 85% of people indicated that they will not book a hotel room without first reading a review. And what that means is, if you don't have reviews on your hotel website, visible to the consumer, easy to understand, then that 85% of people are going to leave your hotel website. Even if they want to book with you, they're going to leave because they got to go find that review before they make a booking decision. So when they leave, where are they going to? They're going to go to TripAdvisor. They're going to go to the OTAs. They're getting exposed not only to these other channels with your own rate, but they're also getting exposed to your competition as well. So we've done a lot of significant testing where hotel websites have tried adding reviews, tried removing them, and seeing the influence. And we see a humongous uptick in conversions when you're actually displaying your own reviews on your own website. And the source doesn't really tend to matter as much as you might think, whether you're bringing in TripAdvisor reviews or third-party products reviews, or even just in the form of testimonials. Anything that can reassure that guest that they're making a sound decision is going to help influence the conversion. And then finally, the other content, we gave them an option to write in. In the top write-ins, all seem to have something in common, which is they were hyper-specific to the individual. So the top 3, in no particular order, were pet-friendly related content, disability access content, and then kid programs. So you see those are 3 unique situations that are only going to apply to a subsection of your audience, right? So what this tells us is that people, yes, they want all the information that is standard, rates, reviews, amenities, location, stuff like that, but they're also looking for a booking for their family, for them as an individual. So your hotel has to do a really good job of catering to those individuals and answering the questions that individuals may have. One of the best tactics that you can employ to achieve that is to have a conversation with your reservation staff, your front desk staff, and ask them what kind of questions are they getting when people call in? What kind of questions are they getting when they come up to the front desk? And make a compilation of those and just do a great job of creating content that is going to answer every single one of those questions. That is going to help the guest, and it's going to help them make a decision, and hopefully that's a decision to book with you and your property. Right, next slide, please. All right, so we asked them what was influencing their decision, and we broke it down to two. It's like before they actually just put you into their decision set, and then once they're on the site, what were the kind of things that were influencing them. So we'll start on the left here. The hotel website was the biggest influencing factor. So they're qualifying you before they get to the website, but in terms of actually making a booking decision, your website is second to none. You're gonna either win or lose that guest based on the quality of your website and the content of your website. Number two is word of mouth, which obviously with social media being so prevalent in good old-fashioned conversations with family and friends, we expected to see that. And then as we go down, in terms of that, and this again, this is the booking decision itself, online travel agents, search engines, review sites, and meta searches all kind of fell behind. So you have a big advantage. If you're doing your website right, then you're going to have more chance of getting the booking because they're looking at that at a bigger influencing factor than they are the OTAs, the meta searches in search engines. And then skipping over to the right, we started asking them, we already talked about the types of content in terms of property information and area information, things like that, but we also asked them about the medium of the content, and we saw that both photography and video was tremendously influential. 87% of people said that photography really influenced their decision, 77% said that video did as well. And then in addition, user-generated content was really up there too, higher than we thought, was 70%. And that could be testimonials, reviews, photography submitted by previous guests. But all of those things are putting forward pressure on the guest and encouraging them through social proof and reassurance to make a booking. Next slide. So this won't surprise too many of you. I think this is in line with what we've already seen today, but what factors are they considering when they're looking? And it is price, and this is in order that they responded. So price was number one, closely followed by location, the room size and the layouts, special offers and deals, amenities, and then again, reviews. And we'll skip through this in the interest of time. So this is something that I think is often overlooked. And what do they do if they actually have a question? Interestingly, 76% of people say that they will contact the property if they had a question. Now, a lot of times it's going to be over the phone. Hopefully you're manning your phones. But what we've also seen is a live chat platform on your website can have an impact on conversions as well. If people have a question, but they do want to book with you, they want to try to answer it. Very few people are actually going to bail out if they have a question unless they cannot get it answered. So be sure to be manning your phones. Be sure to have live chat or contact requests on your website. Give them a channel so they can communicate with you directly. Next slide. And then another influencing factor that is often overlooked is loyalty, and there's a lot of talk about loyalty in the industry right now. We've seen Hilton and Marriott revamp their loyalty programs and go away from this long-term earning of value to more instant gratification type programs, and that is bared out in our results as well. We saw that people, more than 78% of people would prefer, even if the value was lower, they would prefer short-term discounts and value over long-term. So often what we can offer, especially for independents, we can't necessarily compete with the big chains, but we can be smart about it. So 50% of people did, 52% did say that they want a loyalty program. And if we're looking at the instant gratification side of loyalty, then things like offering early check-in if they're a member, discounted food and beverage at their first stay, free breakfast, faster Wi-Fi, and then discounts on future stays would be a cherry on the top. A lot of previous loyalty programs tended to focus on the discounts towards future stays. Loyalty is no longer about getting people to come back to your property. It's about making evangelists out of your existing guests so that they leave happy, they advocate for your property on social media, and they're very likely to come back as well. So loyalty, I think, is something often overlooked in this industry, especially with independent hotels. Next slide, please. And then quickly we'll run through this final slide, which I just wanted to point out, from everything we've talked about, people are discerning. They're looking for specific information. We know what that information is, and we know from centuries of psychology studies on the sales process what factors are going to influence whether or not someone is going to purchase with you or not. So let's take a quick brief look at Booking.com on the right hand side here. Here's a screenshot. It's stacked. The left shot was above the right shot. It was one mobile result, and I picked mobile specifically because we know that the majority of people are consuming hotel information on mobile these days. But look at all the things that they're doing to apply forward pressure and leverage psychology towards getting a booking. So they're doing things like fear of missing out by saying that this room is in shortage, or that the one room that was even better has already sold out. They're using social proof in this terms of reviews and guest responses. They're reassuring people by offering things like no deposits or money back guarantees, things like that. They're giving flexibility in terms of the filtering at the top. So they're doing a lot of things, but most importantly, they're answering every question. If you had a checkbox of all the factors that influence a guest decision, they're making sure they answer every single one of those questions. So my question to you listening to the webinar is your website competing on this level? Is it answering every single question that the guest may have when they're booking? Because if it's not, then there's obviously room for improvement. And if you do start doing all the things OTAs are doing, not only are you going to take share away from competition around the corner, the other properties in your neighborhood, but you're also going to start taking share away from the OTAs and driving them towards direct bookings as well. So let's give a few takeaways, but before we do, if you wanted to dig into any of this in a little more detail, we do, like Valerie mentioned, do a weekly hotel marketing podcast. You can get it at fieldtravel.com/podcast, and we've talked about some of these subjects in episodes 44 and 46 in the past, so check those out if you want to dig any more into some of the stuff we talked about today. And finally, the takeaways. So number one, make sure you're standing out. You are not just competing against the property next door, you are competing against the OTAs and your other distribution channels. Make sure that you are being helpful to the guest in answering every single question that they have. If you're not helping them, then they're probably going to go somewhere else where they feel like they are getting helped, because they want a property that's going to give them a great experience, and that experience starts when they land on your website. That is the virtual front desk for your property, and you need to make sure you're as hospitable there as you are when they walk in the door. And then make sure you create a booking experience that's frictionless and it applies that forward pressure using psychology. Mobile friendly is critical. A lot of people say that people aren't booking on mobile. We found data that contradicts that. The reason that some folks are saying that people don't book on mobile is because those properties have a terrible mobile booking experience. If you have a great booking engine that offers a mobile first experience, you can expect to see double the number of mobile bookings that you're currently seeing. It's just that simple. So hopefully you guys took something from this, and I'll hand it back to Valerie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stuart. So with these last few minutes that we have, and if you have availability to stay behind a couple of minutes, please feel free to do so if you have questions. While we were doing the presentation, a few people did have questions, so we'll answer those, and if there are any more, please go ahead and type them into the questions box, and we'll be monitoring them. But the first one actually goes back, I think, to you, Stuart, and it was right around the time that you were presenting this particular slide. The question is, do micro-influencers like friends play more importance in what a hotel one chooses? and I saw that word of mouth seemed to be a big influencer that your travelers reported. So can you give us a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah, 100%, absolutely they do. I mean, if you think about how we consume things in general, I mean, for forever, even before the internet, we would listen to our peers, we'd listen to our friends and families, and that has a huge influence on the decisions we make. The internet changed that a little bit because we started going towards this. Our peers were now anonymous through reviews, things like that. But social media, people pay attention to social media, and we see that products that leverage this, Flip.to is a great example of that, where they leverage social influence within your social circles. And the data that we've captured from that product alone really shows us that if your friend tells you that you should do something, you're a lot more likely to do it than if a stranger does, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're seeing that too within the social influencer community. On Instagram, I think social influencers have really blown up to promote destinations, in particular hotels. So, like you said, it's not just your friends and family that you talk to, but also the people that you're following on social media.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have another question. Wanted to get more detail. What are the long tail phrases regarding search terms used on Google? Do we have any more insights there? So, yeah, so to expand a little bit more on the word cloud that we were talking about, so we already mentioned that the top three types of terms that we saw most commonly used by our respondents were the hotel, a destination, and then the combination of the two. But a bit further down the tail, we also saw different accommodation types being typed in. So we would also not only see hotel, but maybe resort or spa within these particular areas as they want to kind of get a little bit more specific. So destination and accommodation types were definitely more so part of those long tail keywords that we saw being searched.
Yeah, we're also seeing at Fuel, we're seeing a lot of specific room type, like 3-bedroom oceanfront, those kind of keywords, and also amenities, specific amenities. Hotels with lazy river, hotels with bowling alley, stuff like that is also becoming more influential.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and I knew that we were going to get this question, kind of in your guys' opinions, and I'll share mine first. Were the presented studies applicable to target markets outside of the U.S.? So, yeah, we particularly mentioned that our respondents were all located in the U.S. So I think there are differences definitely between U.S. travelers and European travelers, for sure, at least in terms of where they're traveling to and maybe how often they're traveling. But I think in terms of sites that they're searching on, I think this information is very much still applicable, especially when it comes to Google, as global as that company is. Do you guys have any more insights there?
Yeah, our study was North America. It was U.S. and Canada primarily. So yeah, again, there's certainly a behavior that is exhibited in that market that's a little different than Europe, but I think a lot of the takeaways apply certainly globally.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours were the same. It was targeting America, but I think given the fact that we're doing it on a generic hotel Google search results page, I think the results will hold true pretty much around the Western world. Obviously, especially with English speakers and perhaps some of the other European languages as well. But Valerie, you're absolutely right about European travellers behaving differently, I think, from North American travellers, because obviously we're managing accounts on 6 continents, and we're seeing different types of behaviour, and often it can be political influences or social influences that are affecting it, such as over here in the UK, Brexit recently happening and the pound dropping. We saw significant impact upon travellers going to North America. It just tailed off quite considerably, and as the pound has rallied back a little bit more, given the change over in America, the pound has got stronger, and we're seeing that the bookings from the UK are actually increasing. So there's a lot of influential factors, but they're definitely different.
Absolutely. Okay, and then we'll just take one last question, and Tris, this was directed to you. So those examples were more for a specific hotel name search. So was there any search conducted? And I know that you only shared a little bit of your study, so I'm sure this is the case. What about city name plus hotel search, or any other types of searches that were conducted in the eye tracking study?
We didn't actually look at the generic search. We mainly because a lot of our marketing efforts are targeted for individual properties. I can't give a definitive answer on that one, unfortunately. However, I would suggest that the results are going to be reasonably similar, with perhaps the slight change in the fact that the right hand image is not going to be there on every single occasion on a very wide search, because obviously it won't bring up a specific property. But that was the reason why we wanted to do it by the specific property, was to bring up that right hand section and just see how that, because that was very, very new, less than 12 months. We wanted to see how that influenced users. But I would probably suggest it would go back more towards the golden triangle, or the E stroke F view, if that right hand section doesn't apply.
Yeah, in the trust use study, we were able to see it was a little bit less scientific, but respondents did say how many times they looked at hotel listing, and I think it was over 60%. We're looking at those hotel listings, so kind of like how you're pointing out, instead of just the hotel profile, Google will give you that summarized listing of all the different hotels that maybe apply to your criteria. So I think that's definitely popularly seen within the search results. So.
Sure.
We are 5 minutes past the hour, and I don't want to keep anyone too much longer, but all of the questions in here will be recorded for us, and we will be happy to get back to individuals with answers to your questions. So please rest assured that you'll get those answers. Also, we will be following up shortly with a recording of this webinar within the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that. And then we'll also go ahead and link to all 3 of the studies that were put together. So if you haven't already dug into them and want to get more information than what was presented here, please go ahead and do so. We'll include that in our follow-up email as well. But for now, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much to Tristan and Stuart, and to all of our viewers today. We look forward to seeing you on another webinar in the future.
Great, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.